So, choosing a trainer for property training and establishing a good fit. Obviously, there's several different options for property training across Ireland and the UK. A word of warning that the strategies are completely different because our finances are different. So you do need to be mindful that lots of people who conduct training in the UK end up having to come back to Ireland and do some more training here because the stuff is not directly applicable. There's a certain amount of differences. I do think there's also differences in the people, so things like negotiation and that become different. But how do you establish a fit? So I suppose when I started to deliver property training, I expected to get people who were all from my own demographic. So they're over 35, they maybe don't want to work 14 hours a day, they're beginning to look at balancing up their life a bit. But I've actually been pleasantly surprised to say that the people who are doing training with me online are a great mix of people, everything from guys who are 18 years of age, right through the ages, good mix of men and women. And why does somebody establish a fit? I think it's nothing to do with the contents of the property training, quite honestly. I think it's to do with liking what the person is about. You have to have a similar outlook to what you're trying to achieve. So property to me is just a vehicle to, it's one of my favourite vehicles to financial freedom. I've had a service business. I've ran various different businesses. I suppose I have a lot of experience of professional services. I've worked with solicitors a lot. I've owned my own accountancy practice, which was an outsourcing accounting practice. I started that 20 years ago when nobody was really talking about outsourcing in Ireland. So I have lots of experience with those hands-on business and was doing property all along at the same time, but I found that property was a brilliant, just complete, there's loads and lots of different ways to get from property to doing as little or as much work as you like. So someone who just wants to really, really wind down, say from a professional career or from maybe running a big builders, I would say to these people, you'll just do a couple of flips a year. You need to calm it down, get some better work-life balance. I'm just as much about work-life balance as I am about making money and getting jobs done. Now, I'm big into efficiency, but my fixation with efficiency is not so that you'll do 10 times more hours at the desk. My fixation with efficiency is so that you'll get up from that desk quicker and go out with the dog or the kids or your other half or whatever you want to do. I think people place far, far too much emphasis on work. They spend too much of their life working. You know, traditionally here in Ireland, we work up till we're 65. Obviously, that's changing a little bit. Old age pension is actually going to probably be a few years later than that now soon. But we give the best years of our life to work, with 4 weeks annual leave and a standard job. And we tend to take out mortgages that span that whole time. When we look, say, even to our Eastern European counterparts, they don't buy a house. Traditionally, they're beginning to do the same thing as us now, and they will soon realise that it's not everything, because what happens an awful lot of people is they actually die very quick into retirement, or they die before they retire, so they never got that time at the end that they were expecting to get for themselves. So traditionally, Eastern Europeans used to say they would work away for a while, they would work all the hours God sent, and they'd come back with the money to buy them. And then the requirements would be much, much, much less. And even my brother is in his mid-50s. Some of his friends now would have done that have gone to America, that have worked long hours, and that have come back with the price of the house. We seem to have decided that this model of just working, not that, you know, an 8-hour day, but then plus a commute, and for a lot of people it's a 10-hour day. We seem to have decided that this is actually a great thing, that this is an improvement on what people were doing. Yeah, it's an improvement, I suppose, on working on 12 hours a day, working Saturdays, etc. But to me, it's nowhere near we need to be. I think if people studied, Irish people especially, but the same in the UK, if we thought through the economics of how we live our lives properly, and we could save ourselves absolutely years. We could buy back years and years and years of freedom. We tend to buy, an awful lot of people feel they have to live in the cities to get the jobs. But most people I know, I've spoken to one person, I'd say, in the last 6 months now, who was embarking on a course with me, who actually knew how much his house would cost when he had paid for it. Most people don't calculate, a 20-year mortgage. In about 25 years at current interest rates, you've paid double. So if you borrow 200, you pay back 400. But the other double is that if you want to pay back 400, you've got to earn 800. Because remember, our tax rate is 50%. It's income tax, PRSI and levy, so it's just about 50% when you add the three of them together. But people don't seem to plot through the economics of this properly. And I am going to do some trainings now on more general financial freedom over the next while. But if you thought and plotted that out properly, then the whole model of going to live in Dublin or going abroad, yes, some of the people who are going abroad, they're coming back with fantastic savings. But what's again interesting to me is I was chatting to a guy with a couple of 100,000 saved from Australia recently. The money is just sitting there doing nothing. They should be investing the money at 10% while they're getting around to coming back. Hands off, I would try and change it into euro if your eventual plan is to come back here. I would change it into euro at the optimum time. Then I would invest it. And then I would be hoping that when you came back, you'd be, if one of them needed to work, or maybe they'd work together on project type stuff. But I certainly am amazed what low expectations, to be honest, people have for their lives often. We live in a first world country. We're very, very lucky in that it's perfectly feasible to retire at 50 in Ireland. People just follow the herd and they don't even think about it. They don't do the sums. So what we focus on here is, I suppose, splitting out what's a passive income, what's a semi-passive income, or what could you do in projects like flips, assisted sales, etc., or whether you really do want a buy-to-let portfolio and you want to, work that portfolio. But I'm so much more emphasis on life and on mix and on what suits you and what do you like doing. A lot of people I know just never ask people, what do you enjoy? What are your skills? Do you like mixing with people? Would you like serviced accommodation? I notice, for example, that some of the people I deal with who do serviced accommodation, I notice there's several ex-nurses. They're people persons. They were already people persons. I didn't make them. It's not because of property. It's actually because of their other skills. So I suppose when you're thinking about a trainer who will suit you, the modules that they're advertising, I have 3 different courses, and you can see the modules to any of them on our website, intelligentpropertytraining.ie. But more than that, really, the reason people find a trainer that suits them, they're about the same thing. I'm about working, whether it's at property, your own job, etc. I'm about working smarter for shorter hours, having more freedom and having a bigger life. I'm in the process of downsizing my own house, and I'm really, really looking forward to having less space, less stuff. I'm completely simplifying everything, and I've radically cut my hours over the last number of years because we just don't know if you'll get to 65 and have that retirement. So for me, all of my trainings are about outsourcing what you can. Yes, I do believe you should get to know how to do something before you give it to somebody else to do, because otherwise you'll never know if they're any good at it or not. So outsourcing things, even paying a sourcer if you don't have time, streamlining things, working those relationships with agents so that they're actually doing a lot of the groundwork for you. I'm in the happy position now in some of my areas that agents will ring me when they see the type of thing I like, because they associate me with that. So by setting up your relationships properly, when I hear people talking about 10xing it and crushing it in the 5 a.m. club, I normally start at 6 o'clock, but I will not set an alarm clock. I wake at 6 o'clock. I would not suggest to somebody who was up getting kids to bed till 9:30 at night and needed an hour or two to themselves, that they should set their clock for 5 o'clock in the morning if they're going to be dragging themselves out of bed half asleep. You have to work to your own strengths and your own weaknesses. I'm not a huge fan even of this balancing up your weaknesses. You're enough the way you are. You work, play to your strengths, outsource the others. We only all have the same amount of hours in the week. So there's no point in me saying, oh, I'm a bit weak at sales marketing. I'm going to become a guru at that, and I'm strong at negotiation and interiors. I can solve insolvency again. That's plenty to keep me going. I don't want to do 78-hour weeks. So I did my time back in my 20s, and I worked very, very long hours for years. But I feel I've done that now, and it lacked balance. You can do it for a time, but you can't do it forever. So I suppose my advice when you're choosing a trainer, yes, of course you need to know, do they know their stuff? What have they actually done themselves? Or have they only ever trained people? And do they have, I think in Ireland, quite honestly, we expect more formal background. I mean, I'm an accountant, a financial advisor, an insolvency expert, and an interior designer, where in the UK most trainers would have no financial qualifications. I think in Ireland we're actually quite education focused. And there's lots of common sense that gets called into play all the time. Common sense and people skills are more useful than all of that, but it's very useful to have that background to fall back on, because obviously I know what you can and can't do company-wise, etc. But really establishing a fit with the trainer is hugely important, because I find it easier to share goals with people who don't want to work all the hours that God sent, who are looking for a better way. I don't necessarily have much in common with the people who want to do 100-hour weeks. Yeah, I can support them, I can tell them what to do, but I fundamentally don't agree with it, so I won't be a brilliant fit. You know, there's other people who will probably suit them better. So that's my tuppence halfpenny work on finding a trainer. I think you need to have more in common than just the property knowledge itself. More about the ethos, the lifestyle, what the bigger goals are, and what you believe in. And obviously you need to check, how was the training delivered? Can you listen to it again the following week if you need to revise it? Is that okay? What if you have questions? Is there a community? And all of that type of thing. But I think it's more about the things that aren't property related than it actually is about property. Thanks for listening, guys.